Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to call the personnel meeting to order. First issue is courtesy of the floor. I don't believe we have a sign-in sheet, but if anybody would like to address council. Seeing none, we'll move into the review of the executive's reappointments. Let's see. First reappointment would be to the Airport Authority for an Ann Baum of Hickory Hill Road, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Any questions?
I'll just ask Mr. Geisinger, does she show up to the meetings?
She is. She's very, very involved. She is also chair of our Capital Projects Committee there, Finance Committee there, my apologies. And she's done an excellent job, and I would highly recommend her for a reappointment.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Is she here by any chance?
No, she's not.
Okay. Recommendation to move it forward?
I move so. Yeah.
Okay, we'll move it forward to tomorrow. And the next recommendation is for the Conservation District Board. It's the reappointment of the Farmer Director, Jeffrey Kiefer of Richmond Road in Bangor, Pennsylvania.
Good person, good director.
Shows up
Okay.
all the time.
Shows up for everything.
Very participating.
Okay.
Good guy.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Move it forward to tomorrow?
So moved.
Okay. And that'll take us into the review of the personnel requests for the Department of Administration 911 Division. And I know Mr. Weaver's here, or if the administration would like to address it.
We also have the consultant here who, I had given Linda a copy of the report. So, if you have questions, I was going to say, I know the consultant's here who can advise us what we're looking to do, and also Todd as well.
Yeah, if you want to step up, I mean,
Questions? You have anything?
Afternoon. As I promised, I was going to be here after the budget hearing. I brought here John McCurry. He's from Emergency Management Solution, and they're the ones that did the study determining number of personnel that are required for the force consolidation of the City of Bethlehem to Northampton County 911 Center. We forwarded the report that they drafted and their numbers. The biggest thing is the state has preliminary awarded. Of course, we're waiting for the paperwork for $948,000 roughly for the 2018 edition of the employees. And they're going to be phased in, and basically you see the schedule there, and that schedule may change just based off of where the funding is, so we end up pretty much at a zero cost, hopefully. But those dates, and depending on how personnel and hiring, we start with hiring right off the beginning of the year, and then we hire in another bunch. And that's also just to stagger the training that we have to do, hopefully to get them onto the floor, and then next start the academic type of training, and then move them on to the on-the-job training, and then that will allow us to get some dispatchers down in the City of Bethlehem and work with their dispatchers and doing some training down there also, some of our seasoned ones. I guess if you have any questions for myself or Mr. McCurry.
I would just ask that the consultants could take us through, especially the first page where the highlights are. I believe there's 6 recommendations. If you could just go through that with us and tell us how you arrived at those, I'd appreciate it.
This one.
Make sure
Yep.
First of all, the industry has for years has been looking for ways to figure out how to maintain staffing in emergency services. Sure. There's a number of factors that are utilized to determine the number of staffing that's used in the call centers throughout the United States and also different types of industries. A lot of factors are what we call the average answer time, the handle time, BHT, of a particular call, and the average time it takes you to handle an incident, with that. The industry came up with formulas to do this and a toolkit on how to determine what your staffing should be. And they use what we call APCO retains. This has been around since 2001, I believe, and it's constantly being modified. We had to look at your call volume. We had to look at your operations. We had to look at a number of factors. Not every PSAP operates in the same way. Not every PSAP has the same benefits as the next PSAP. So we had to look and see the availability of man hours, with that. With your particular center, we've using a formula and all of the criteria that's involved with APCO retains. We came to the conclusion that you need 12 positions. And with those 12 positions, we had to figure out exactly how we fit those people within your schedule. So we had to look at how many man hours we can actually use per person. And due to your benefits and so on, each man hour is about 1,620 man hours. And I don't know if I'm going in order on these points over here. Once we realized what the actual man hours were and took a look at your shifts and how do we apply that into those shifts, we came up with the amount of staffing you need to man those 12 positions, which came out to 20 telecommunicators, additional 20 telecommunicators to your current 44. In comparison to the city of Bethlehem, your particular center, I believe you have eight positions right now, dispatch positions. City of Bethlehem has 4. They man on a daily basis. Some differences on your night shift. It's a little bit different. However, we wanted to make sure that during this consolidation that the service is maintained. And initially, another way to look at this was, well, let's just duplicate what they have and put it over here with that. And we wanted to do the comparison to make sure that we don't just do that. We can have the numbers to agree with that. And with that said, this is where we came up with 20 additional people, tier 44, and 6 additional supervisors to man those shifts. Sure.
No, go ahead, Matt. I do have a question, but let Matt go.
So these positions, I think Bethlehem had 20 on their own, right? Is that how many they had as their standard?
Their originals. What do they currently have on their roster?
On the roster, I thought it was 26.
Okay.
21.
Okay, so I guess I would have thought maybe a little bit more, would have got a little bit more efficiency, than just losing one position with it. And then do we think so we'll have a total of 64, do we think that's more of a transition thing, or do you think we'll need 64?
Well, as part of the report that EMS put in was that they looked at the numbers, it came out to the 20, and they suggested that we keep that there just so we can make sure that we're maintaining the same. Because what we have to evaluate is call volume. So they're going off of call volume. Really, to get a whole good year of statistics, we can reevaluate this with the call volume that comes in, and if we have to up the number to cover the additional call volume or lower it and do it through attrition, then that's how we would handle that. But what he didn't want is us to come up short in this consolidation, because we want to maintain the service all the way through for Northampton County and Bethlehem.
Sure.
That there's not any lapse in that.
Okay.
Because we did actually have that conversation of trying to look at some savings. Unfortunately, with personnel, you probably find more of your savings in a consolidation of regional projects, more in the equipment probably than the personnel.
Okay.
Todd, we are going to get monies from the state for this. Is that just for next calendar year, or is that going forward?
Well, what will happen is for this calendar year, we have to apply yearly for the Act 12 15% fund for regionalization and consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the funds are coming from the state. It doesn't come from our 83% that we get normally to operate the 911 center, which pays for our current staff and
Mm-hmm.
most of our services there. So what will happen now in the state with, because EMS applies for these projects for us and sees where we need, so they'll be applying in 19 for the remainder of that until the city of Bethlehem actually ceases answering 911 calls. The moment they stop answering 911 calls, that's when the state will transfer whatever's left for that year out of their 83% fund, or what they didn't receive yet, that will come to the county to cover the cost of the personnel. So it'll no longer be done through somewhat of a, let's just call it a grant process. It will actually then become part of our regular budget, but our 83% would be with Bethlehem's on top of that, which will hopefully cover the personnel with keeping our county contribution low.
Okay. And so we're doing this now because the money's coming in 2017, correct?
The reasons that we're doing it now is because we got approval for funding, but what we needed was a transition plan. The issue is the City of Bethlehem has to stay up and operating. They got to keep working until we get all these systems in that we can take the City of Bethlehem over to our operation. But we also have to bring in people and train and have them ready, so we can't just flip the switch and hope people are in the seat.
That, yeah.
And our training process with EMS is pretty much about they're on probation for a year when they start with that, because there's a lot of training, and they got to know all the positions plus the City of Bethlehem. There's ways, if it gets compressed, that we can kind of fast track some things and catch it up. But the object is to allot as much time as we can to do this right. So hopefully it's still an aggressive schedule with this much training that we have to do.
The plan was to begin, the plan was to receive the money by October 1st and institute the plan. But the agency's run a little bit late, you know. So we had to modify the plan to begin, we had to modify the plan to begin the first of the year, or at least one position the 31st or something like that.
Yeah. I don't want to jump into the 2017 budget amendment that we're going to talk to at the next meeting, but maybe this is to Duran. That, this monies that we're talking about, is that accounted for in the 2017 budget amendment that we're going to be doing later on tonight? Okay.
Yeah, and a part of that when working with Duran is knowing when the funds are actually going to hit
Right, yeah.
our accounts.
Yeah.
So we try to plan for what the state says and dates, and
Yeah.
we kind
No,
of
it's
just keep
moving-
moving the
it's a moving
target a little
target,
bit
yeah.
on us.
But anyway, we do have these monies.
Yes.
Right. And that's what the budget amendment's for, so we do have those monies.
Yes.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else? Ken?
Yeah, I guess my question is, will we be retaining or offering or encouraging the Bethlehem personnel to apply for these positions?
As far as encouraging, there is 4 opportunities in doing this phased-in plan for City of Bethlehem employees to come over to the county. They still have to match the same, I guess, initial requirement to get an interview, and that's because we don't maintain their quality assurance levels and some of their testing, and we kind of matched up. We're not requiring anything beyond what they already did. We're only requiring what the county has always had, and we put a testing process in place that they got to score a minimum of an 80 on, and it's basically testing being a 911 dispatcher. It's called Critical, and that's what we use. The City of Bethlehem doesn't use that in any of their employment. And we didn't necessarily want to lower the bar, and plus talking with City of Bethlehem, they're looking to keep up their, I guess, city services center. So right now they're looking to retain some of their employees. So we have to get this moving. So if anybody does come over, we kind of had talks with HR to see what we can do, but we can't hold these positions over for somebody just saying, yeah, I might come with you, and then 18 months later they don't come work for us. So there are opportunities there, and we have engaged HR and their HR department, and we've also been informing Bob Novotnik of where we're at with this and what we're posting. Could this create some of their employees to come over to us and some personnel issues over there? They're having personnel issues now and just trying to keep it. And they seem to be holding their own, and we have weekly conversations of where we might need to help them or do some type of hybrid plan once we start getting our employees up to the numbers.
Yeah,
Right now we need to bring the numbers to even be able to offer some help there if we have to.
Yeah, I think that was the genesis of my question. If we're going to start this now, and these folks are going to work until,
They did some
the end of
unofficial
next year,
polling.
is there going to be any?
Their numbers are not high that would be looking to come over to county. At least that they voiced openly.
Right. I mean, and that may
Yeah.
have to do with where they are as far as a pension there. They may want to seek other.
Yeah, some we
they-
know are bidding out or looking at other
Yeah.
city jobs and stuff.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? I guess my question would be, seeing some of this money is, I want to say reimbursed from the state, do we need any state approval before this plan goes through?
This project was already approved before we came here.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
I still like to have the paperwork signed by them, but they issued the report, it was just the day before the budget hearing. They issued a report saying that these particular projects that we applied for were approved. We weren't coming here until we had at least something from the state that we were approved, because, part of it is if you're not funding this this unfunded, this mandate, if they unfunded it, then that would cause some issues, and
Right.
we need some help on this. So they actually did come through on the personnel side. It was a little bit of debate back and forth, and we kind of used EMS and ourselves to explain the position, even with City of Bethlehem's help, to say, listen, we need to do this so we can keep the continuity of 911 throughout the county.
Okay.
Just so I understand, we have the best approval for this, because we have the money, right? That's what this budget amendment is for tonight, correct?
Yes, they're amending the budget for the funds that will be coming in for 17 for this.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, and EMS is working just to make sure we have all the paperwork confirming it from the state.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Okay, recommendation moving forward?
So moved.
Okay. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for
Yes,
coming.
thank you.
Thanks.
Hope we got you out of here quick enough. Anything else for personnel?
Yeah, I had one question, and this is just general. Maybe Duran can answer it. When was the last time that the career service was awarded a step as part of either a budget or a pay? Has that been done any recently, or?
My recollection,
Mhm.
as far as a step, was you
Yeah.
talking about going from step one
A
to
to-
two, or A
no,
to B?
A to B, yeah,
which
to
would
the
be the
right.
equivalent of a 4.5% increment.
Yeah.
I can't remember it happening, well, we know it didn't happen in this administration. It did not happen in the Stofe administration, as far as a step. I truly believe it probably was back in the Reedman administration
Wow.
when we actually, there was a COLA, but not the step. If you remember a couple of years back,
Mm-hmm.
just Mr. Kraft could probably refresh my memory. The COLA became 4.5% rather than the 2.5%. It was like 2 years ago, but that was not a physical step on the pay scale. So my best recollection would be back in the Reedman administration.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Motion to adjourn? Okay. And that concludes personnel. Over to finance.
All right. Thank you very much. We will commence the Finance Committee meeting. We're opening up to the courtesy of the floor. Is there anybody who would like to address the Finance Committee? Seeing none, we'll move into the review of the 2017 budget amendment that we have been discussing for the last several minutes. Duran, do you want to address the individual items?
Sure. Happy to.
Thank you, Mr. Hanneman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I should have said that when I came up before. I apologize. Before you is the second amendment for 2017, compiled by the executive and the administration. It's 5 pages long. It's typically the largest of the two amendments each year. I can walk through all of it. I can open up for questions, or I can point out some points of interest. So I think I'll start with the points of interest. Okay. The very first item on here is County Council's financial stabilization account. The amendment is proposing that we contribute approximately $6.6 million additional funding into your stabilization fund, which will bring it to $20,400,000, which represents 15% of the general fund, which will be in compliance with your ordinance that was passed a number of years ago.
the ordinance says between 5 and 15%.
Right.
So
Right.
this is the absolute maximum,
Correct.
Right.
and in my opinion, I think it may be a bit much.
Well, you only have $20 million to support over a $400 million operation.
That, no.
Yes.
The way that the ordinance is written is for the general fund.
That's what it's
not
based
for the
upon,
entire.
but your stabilization account will support the entire operation. So you
But
have to
the
re-
ordinance doesn't require
No,
that.
no.
It just takes into account the general fund.
And if you recall, 3 years ago, we were down to only $3 million in the county and almost had to borrow money to make payroll. Right. Well, we're
No.
still waiting for millions of dollars from the state, so nothing's changed, really, regardless of what you read in the newspaper.
Mr. Hammond,
Okay, online, sorry.
I appreciate
So-
you continuing to move forward, and
So, again-
while people don't bother to call out without being called upon. Thank you, Mr. President.
So again, that's the purpose and the justification for that particular change. The next one, hotel tax, we usually at this time of the year, we look at what the increase has been. I'm happy to say we've experienced through the month of September approximately a 4% increase in hotel tax revenue over 2016. So we're amending accordingly to recognize that additional revenue. Going down through the community and economic development, those are basically grants that, they're self-contained. I'll skip over the balancing items and we can come back and review through those. The next item is the Administration Enhanced 911 Act 12, which is what you just spoke about with Todd. Basically, the grant, that the fees that are going to be passed on to the county is approximately $1.4 million. And we've broken that out into the salaries, the fringes, and the operating and the capital items that encompasses with the grant that they applied for. Going on to page 2, the Watershed Specialist Adjustment, that was brought to your attention at the budget hearing when you were informed that the grant that we amended back in June didn't materialize and that had to be taken out of the 2017 budget. The next item is for open space farmland preservation. Also during the budget presentations for 2018, we informed council that there would be a $200,000 shortfall in the contribution in 2018 because there was a commitment of the Route 33 TIF. And the executive at that time assured council that he would replenish that $200,000 for farmland preservation for the commitment of matching funds for 2018, and that's what he's doing here. Going on further, it's the task force, which is basically the federal equipment that's given to us. The coroner, again, as I speak to Zach every year, the cost of autopsies, the forensic things, and with the significant increase in deaths, primarily due to the use of drugs, he is requesting some additional funding there as well. As we go into some of these other items, you'll see a lot of them are interest, investment on interest on investments. The reason we're making so many adjustments this year is when we presented the 2017 budget, we didn't know that the Federal Reserve Bank was going to raise the prime twice in 2017. So that's the reason for we're making that adjustment. And there's a possibility on December 13th they're going to vote for another increase, but that'll have a very minimal impact. So a number of the interest adjustments we're making is because of the Federal Reserve. Going on after that, we get into the human services, and again, these are typically here in the June and December budget amendment. The one item I will point out to you is in the Children, Youth, and Family Division. They are requesting an additional county contribution for 2017 of approximately $342,800. This is to supplement their Title IV-E funding. Many times we talk about mandated, unfunded requirements of the state. This is more like it's mandated, but the funding will come down the road or in a couple of years or whenever. So the services are mandated, but they'll reimburse us eventually. We just had an experience, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, we just got reimbursement from 5 years ago that they owed us. So we got it, but it was 5 years after the fact. But again, so they're asking for the county to give additional county contribution at this time.
Did they give us any interest on that reimbursement, Mr. Hand?
No. I think we should be thankful we got the money. Again, going through the rest of the human services, they're basically self-contained, except for the children and youth. That's why I wanted to point that out for you. Going through there. And then coming in, I'm on the top of page 5 right now, and then we show the capital improvement to the human service building. We're all familiar with the human service building. And in March of 2019, the county will have the opportunity to exercise the option to purchase that building. What this amendment is doing is putting in the last piece of financing for that, so you will have, at present value, approximately $14.6 million, which is the purchase price of March of 2019 to purchase that building. It's awful quiet. Again, and then the last two items are the remaining funding that we have left from the 2013 bond issue, and again, they're primarily the interest again. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the amendment before you for 2017.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hammond? Mr. President, any questions? Sorry.
No, not a question, just a statement. I think that having 20.4 million, I think it's too much. I mean, I know this was argued over the past year amongst candidates. I don't think it needs to be that high, and I'll disagree with the administration. That's all.
Okay. Well, I'll make my statement on that. I think that as a person who looks at the financial side of things on a regular basis for the companies with which I work with, and looking down the road, we don't know what this economy is going to do. We have no idea what this economy is going to do. We have no idea what the state is going to do with its budgets. I would feel much more comfortable knowing that there's $20 million there to shore up a $400 million operation than not. So I do appreciate what the administration is doing. Mr. Dietz.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't put it in the stabilization, it's still in the general fund. We still have it. Mm-hmm. And
True.
And personally, my take, and I think I've expressed this before, put it in stabilization, it has to be in there. If you pull it out, you have to put it back, which I get and agree with the premise of that. But as I discussed before, we have some bonds coming up that we actually could use that money and pay off on and save that interest that is creeping up on us if we kept that funds in the general fund for now. And in 19, we have the access to pay off roughly $6 million.
I think a lot depends on what the cost of funds would be moving forward. What interest rates would be, and the money that you could earn on that investment versus what you're paying off. There's a cash flow and a future value, present value calculation there that I think Duran would probably be able to make that would be indicative of what was the best move.
And who knows what our interest rates are going to go by 2019.
Right. Remember, I'm not saying refinance. I'm saying pay off the one that we have in 19. So
that's the first opportunity that I believe we have, too.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Ms. Farrar? Sorry, were you done?
No, I'm not on the committee, but I do support the stabilization fund, especially in light of what we went through with the state a couple years ago. And now they passed a budget, but they have no revenue side. So
Right.
that's so up in the air. And I just feel so much better if we know we have a good, strong base for us.
I agree. I worry about the
Then we
citizens
don't have
of
to look
Wayne County.
about, maybe don't have to go out and borrow, or, which we didn't have to, thanks to good financing, Durian.
So, Mr. Fennell and then Mr. Kraft.
I'm just going to echo what Mr. Farrar just said. I think when the 4 years ago, when that council was elected, we all said we wanted to beef up the stabilization fund. And, I always refer to it as a rainy day fund. And you look what the state did last year and how close we came to having to borrow money. And I'd rather, the money's in-house. I think this is what the fund is for. So at just my 2 cents, I think it's worth having there.
Mr. Kraft?
Yeah, my question's away from the stabilization fund. The Public Works bridges,
Sure.
they're asking for $72,800 more. What is that for?
Which particular one? What page are you on? Okay.
4,600, Public Works bridges. You got state allocation, interest of investments, which I understand, but bridge projects, an infusion of $72,800 more.
You're talking about the federal money?
There's no page numbers on here.
Yeah, at the bottom of the page there is. But are you talking about the
Not on
federal
mine.
money for $72,336?
We have, you got 75,400 is the code, bridge projects, 306,132. You're asking to put $72,800
Right.
more to it.
We
What are we doing?
This has to do with Bridge 102.
102.
Bridge 102, which is a federally state-funded of 95% and the county's funding 5%. We received an additional allocation from the federal government and the state government totaling almost $85,000.
Good.
So that's why we're recognizing that additional revenue, and it's committed to just Bridge 102.
Then the next one, Public Works Bridges, GF, whatever the heck that stands for.
General fund.
Federal Commonwealth Bridge Project, 75,400 again, another 85,899. That's just what?
That's again, we're getting additional federal and state money.
So we're just showing the...
Right, we're recognizing whenever we're notified of additional funding for bridges or whatever, we're recognizing that revenue so we can have the ability to expend those funds in the
Right.
current year.
Yeah, which I like more funds for bridges, so, okay,
Right.
perfect. All right, that was my only question.
Okay.
2 questions, sorry.
That's okay. Anybody have anything else for Mr. Hammond while he's there? Thank you, Mr. Hammond.
You're
As
welcome.
always,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Free money is good.
Can I make a statement on that? When free money is good, this is state money for 102. When 102 it's on Georgetown Road, which is in my neighborhood. I drove down there when Tom Kohler was finishing up, and the engineers were there. And Tom told me something that floored me. He said that they had the first meeting, the plan for replacing 102. They had the first meeting in 1997.
Yeah, I believe
And
it.
that's what free money is good, but it comes with an awful lot of overhead, time-consuming cost.
It comes with a price. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It's not free.
No free lunch.
No free money. All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda then is item number 3, which is the review of the county depository list. This is traditionally a bookkeeping item to ensure that we have our current list of authorized banking relationships up to date. It appears we are removing Florida Capital Bank. And anything else on this, Mr. Hunter, of importance? Because that seems to be the only change. Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
That bank was put on, I think, last year or the year before. That was our benefit wallet bank, through the Human Resources.
Right.
They are now going to go back to Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is already on our list.
Right.
So we're just removing the Florida bank.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move that forward.
Okay.
It's a housekeeping item, no problem on that.
I don't know what the next item is.
A review of the Graystale private pay rate.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good
What you have
afternoon,
before
Allison.
you, hello, is a request to increase the private pay rate at Graystale for both the private rooms and the semi-private rooms. The increase is for $10 each, so a $10 increase for the semi-private and a $10 increase for the private room. So that means for the semi-private room, we are going from $320, requesting to go up to $330. For the private room, requesting to go from $330 to $340. We do this every year. We review the rates, make sure that we are functioning as properly as we can, and we do a little survey of the area, and even with this $10 increase, we are still in the lower third strata of all of the private pay and private room and semi-private room expense cost.
Wow. Anybody, any comments, concerns?
How does that correlate to the private nursing homes that are out there? $340 a day, you know.
We are in the bottom third of that. So now, sometimes it's apples and oranges because, for example, Graystale has a bundled rate where the beautician is factored in, and some places you have to pay separately or a la carte for some of those services. But even so, if you do a top-line analysis, we're still in the bottom third cost-wise. That means two-thirds are above us.
And for other public nursing homes, where we fall,
Public nursing homes, I do not know.
you know, like us, all over the state, what are their average costs?
Don't know.
Remember we had county charges a day?
Not off the top of my head. We could get that, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I would figure you could bounce off of that county and figure out how much everybody's charging and what the rate of fee is.
We called local nursing homes that privately in the area.
Yeah, but I mean nursing homes like ours.
Mm-hmm.
State.
Yep, I don't have that off the top of my head.
So you didn't call,
All right, does anybody have anything else? Thank you, Ms. Rowdy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is the Recorder of Deeds fee schedule. Welcome back, Mr. Hunter, sorry.
Good evening again.
Didn't we just do the Recorder of Deeds fee schedule?
We did, and I think at that meeting, I did say I would be back because I knew this was coming. This is another mandated requirement. This is part of the Act to Justice. I think, Mr. Cusick, I saw your email to Jermaine, and I think this does affect other parts of the county. But my area is the Recorder of Deeds. I did include a fee schedule. In those first 5 items, any of the recording that we do, a percentage of that or a dollar amount of that recording goes to the Act of Justice. So it's $4.75 increase on each one of those 5 items. I'm just asking you to approve the fee schedule as presented.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this for Mr. Hunter?
This is mandated, right?
It's state mandated.
Yeah,
that's
state
what I'm saying.
required.
So
This is a paperwork push.
it's a paperwork thing, yeah.
All right.
That's all I had tonight was paperwork.
That's right. It's all paperwork pushes today. Thanks, Mr. Hunter. All right. Thank you, Mr. Barron, for your patience. Last item on our agenda is the review of the controller reports in order: the Hotel Bethlehem, the Holiday Inn Express, the Red Carpet Inn, and the 911 tax reimbursement.
All right. Wonderful. So, good evening, Council. The first report is the Hotel Bethlehem report. You will notice that the Hotel Bethlehem is, they didn't have many exemptions. However, they have paid their taxes, and they actually overpaid us $4.97. Considering it is an immaterial amount, we won't be writing them a check back. But I did have to promise Bruce Haynes a beer, so I'm joking. But so $4.97. What's that? I know.
Depends where you buy the beer.
At the Hotel Bethlehem prices. I'm just kidding.
Ooh,
Sorry, Bruce. That's on camera.
On the record.
All right. So the next one is the Holiday Inn Express. Again, we do the same procedures with each one of them, and the hold on. Page 3 of my report is not on here. Did you guys get a copy of page 3, or was it blank? Yeah, the exhibit.
Yeah, we have it.
For some reason, mine is not coming up. Can I borrow it just to double check? Sorry. All right. So the money that is due to the county was $365.19. Based on those following months. So exemptions and documentation were not made available. Any questions about any of that?
Is that just basically from people who stayed more than 30 days and the paperwork wasn't there properly?
Well, so if you're traveling and you get an exemption or you're tax-exempt
Right.
organization, you don't have the forms, proper documentation wasn't recorded.
Okay.
If another example, something that comes up every now and again, if you have a discounted room rate, i.e., the fair market value for a room is, say, $119, but you have somebody from your corporation staying there overnight and you charge them $39 or $40.
Gotcha.
Oftentimes there's a discount paperwork that goes along with that. Sometimes that documentation isn't available, so it kind of looks...
Doesn't look good.
Exactly. So then they usually take care of that.
Okay.
Any questions about any of that? Okay. Red Carpet Inn will be the next one. And I have the same phenomenon on that paper as well. My third page did not print out. You do not? Okay.
Neither do I.
All right. Let's see. 3 exemptions did not have supporting documentation. The exemptions were independently verified with sponsoring organization in New Jersey, which arranged accommodation for homeless veterans. We advised the organization to provide documentation in the future, so I believe they're all set. There was a page 3 there, but there is nothing on there, so there was no exemptions one way or the other. So, sorry about that. Any questions about the Red Roof Inn? And then last but not least, every year we do this report. This is the E911 reimbursement. So as you know, the importance of this report is basically to make sure you calculate the millage rate discounts correctly with regard to organizations that do not use the county's 911 services. The city of Bethlehem always being the largest, the calculation will change in the future, as you probably heard in the beginning of the meeting. So the tax reduction for the city of Bethlehem is the $115,000. The North Catasauqua and Walnutport, who both use Lehigh County's 911 center, is a total of $9,666 or something along those lines. So there are all the calculations and the recommendations and reductions of the millage rates. As you know, some years there's not really much of a change. Some years there's nothing to recapture. But this year the millage rates as recommended are here for your review. Any questions on any of that?
Anybody?
Yeah, I had one.
Sorry, Mr. Kraft.
It came up that we're going to be making this conversion mid-year. How will we tax, like, as you know, the city of Bethlehem gets a deduction. How is that going to work as far as tax bills that year where we're covering half the, you know what I'm saying?
So we don't know that number in advance to begin with. So my guess is that if it happens mid-year, we would calculate what it would be potentially and then recapture that revenue in the following year. So, or we would issue another refund that would be much smaller in the year following, depending on where that money flows in. So it would still fit into the calculation. Then once Bethlehem is removed, the only little calculations we need to make is for North Catasauqua and Walnutport. Those are the only ones. And I imagine that any reorganizations does not include them moving into Northampton County based on their geographic location. So my guess would be is that there would be a calculation because this is the tax credit for 2017 that will be taken out in 2018. So my guess is that the 2018 calculation, whatever that includes, will be handled in 2019. And my guess is that by 2019, 2020, Bethlehem will not factor into the mix anymore.
And I guess I've forgotten this. It just reminded me. Are we going to be covering West Bethlehem as part of the consolidation?
Yeah, I believe so.
Will
yes.
there have to be some reciprocation as part of, like what we do here for North Caddy and Walnutport? Is Lehigh County going to do some? Are we going to have some sort of arrangement there
I will double check and make sure, but there is that potential, there is that possibility. It would probably fall, though, on Lehigh County to give credit to the city of Bethlehem, West Bethlehem, for that taxes that they would pay in Lehigh County that would cover 911. So I don't know exactly how that would work, but I think it would be the onus would be on Lehigh County to do that, because we would be covering them, and I think the discount would.
I think the onus is going to be on us to go after the money. I don't
possibly.
think they're just going to write us a check.
I would. My guess is that would have to be discussed, and I imagine the agreement would look close to what North Catasauqua and the borough of Walnutport. What it would be similar to that agreement, except towards Lehigh County, would be my guess.
Yeah, makes sense. Anybody, anything else for Mr. Barron? Wow. All right.
Thank you,
Mr. Barron. Appreciate it very much. And to answer Mr. Kraft's question on a very quick Google search, the rate effective January 1, 2014, so I don't know if this is updated, at Cedarbrook Nursing Home was $320 a day, regardless of room occupancy. Yeah. So it's, this was 4 years ago almost. I would think so. I would think they are in line with us. Yeah, I would think so. So does anybody have anything else for the good of the order prior to adjournment? Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are adjourned.
Last week was our
I'll say that's the last.